Ladies and gentlemen, we've got an extremely exciting day ahead of us today. We've spent a huge amount of time and energy trying to put together some of the best people globally to share with you. And one of the things that's really, really exciting, and one of our biggest challenges, is that we could sit here for 3 weeks and share information with you. So our challenge is to get it across as succinctly as possible, and for you to be able to walk away and say, that makes sense, what do I do with it? Our number one priority today is to be able to give you the information to enable you to be able to make educated and informed decisions. Because we are only about one thing and one thing only: having our interests aligned and partnering with people that want to partner with us. The purpose of today is so that you can understand what it is that we do. You can understand who we are. You can understand what our experience is. And most importantly, you can make educated and informed decisions as to what you want to do, how you can help yourself, and whether or not you want to partner with us. I want to share with you a book that I would highly, highly recommend that you read, which I've just recently read. It's called The One Thing. Trust me, I've read a hell of a lot of literature, and this book I've recently read is probably in my top 5. And the most important thing about The One Thing is that you need to focus on what your objective is. So today you are here, you're considering investing either locally or offshore, and real estate investment is a large amount of capital. So your one thing today is to get a result out of today. It's not to answer an email, it's not to keep people happy by text message. If you focus just on today, then you will get your one thing. Now, my one thing today is to share with you something that I'm extremely passionate about, and it's freedom. Basically, Nelson Mandela said, and it was the very first quote in my book, and I'm going to be referring quite a lot today to the book, and those VIP people will actually have a hardcover of the book, and the rest of you have all got it on ebook, so nothing you have to worry about because it's all there. But Nelson Mandela said, money won't create success. The freedom to make it will. And that's what today is all about. I've got a very personal story, and for those of you who don't know, right in the beginning of the book, I talk about 2 people that had a massive influence on my life. The first one was my father. My father was a financial director of Rainbow Chickens, but he always wanted to work for himself. And so at the 1995, at the age of 49, he took early retirement, and he was paid out 500,000 Rand. Now, I'm sure that there's some financial planners in the room, so I'm going to qualify this up front. In any profession, 9 out of 10 people are useless. And 1 out of 10 are good. Doesn't matter if it's a doctor, a financial planner, an accountant, a lawyer. 1 out of 10, 10%, generally from my experience, are really good, but 9 out of 10 are useless. My father obviously found one of those 9 out of 10, because he took 500,000 Rand, and 10 years later my father passed away, and the financial planner, I guarantee you, had earned his fees and earned his commissions, but my mother got paid the significant sum of 480,000 Rand. I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, that return is just unheard of. So I did a bit of research actually in 2005 about something I'm really passionate about, and on top of that, I wrote up the research in the book right up in the beginning. But if my folks had taken that 500,000 Rand, the average house price on the 31st of December 1994 was 166,000 Rand, according to the ABSA Housing Index. They could have bought 5 houses at a loan to value of 40%, which for those of you who don't understand is pretty low risk. My mother would have been cash flow positive, or they would have been cash flow positive, even when the interest rates were 24%, by 2,000 Rand a month, plus minus. Okay. Worst case scenario, they were still cash flow positive. 10 years later, when my father passed away, my mother would have been earning 107,000 per year from those properties. This is after all costs. One of the things we're going to talk a lot about today is management. If you still think you have to do management, whether it's in Johannesburg, Cape Town, or Atlanta, you need to change your mindset if you want to grow. So I'm not including my mother managing these properties. I'm including a professional doing everything and her receiving a check. The asset value would have been 2.7 million. Quite a long way off the paltry 480,000 Rand capital she was given back. But the fascinating thing is that now being the end of last year, so she would have been about 2 years away, she'd be earning 2 million rand a year net income. And the value would be 5.35 million. Now, Dolph's going to talk a lot today about beating the averages. I'm just talking about an average house on the Absa Housing Index. And for me, when I looked at that, plus what I'd had with my own success in property, it just made absolutely no sense to give my money to someone else where their interests weren't aligned. Because his interest was to make money up front. And with all due respect, he did not care one iota about the success or failure of my family. Whereas, very simply, with 5 houses, my mother could be, she's not bad off, but she could be a lot better. And the second person was my uncle, because he's a completely stark example. You know, half my family is from Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. We technically have 3 farms on paper. And interestingly enough, in 1980, at the age of 30, he decided to take a decision to do something. And so what he did was open an offshore bank account. And most importantly, he would take some of his income, and he would live, and he would have a great life, and he'd take some of his income and he'd put it into a first world currency. And in 2003, and for the record, I'm not saying South Africa's going like Zimbabwe. Doesn't matter what happens. Could be another global financial crisis. But in 2003, he had the ability, by his choice, to move to Australia. Now, he was 53 years old. For anyone who knows that after 45, it gets pretty tough to get into Australia. But you can go anywhere you want in the world if you own first world currency, because it's called buy your way in. He bought his way in. He bought a house cash in Australia, in Brisbane, for $1.8 million. He sent his kid to one of the best private schools, not quite as good as a Kearney College, but maybe similar to like a Saints. And most importantly for me, he didn't have to work for an Australian. And I tell you this with goose pimples, because it took one thing and one thing only. And what was that one thing that was the difference in my uncle's life? Mindset, vision, a decision. It took a decision. It didn't take panic. By the time things go into chaos, there's nothing you can do. It took a decision 23 years earlier to make sure that he had his ducks in a row so that he could do whatever. And I've got one passion today, one message to share from myself and from a lot of the people that I deal with. All that we want to do is give you the freedom so that you can make the decisions that you want in the future. I don't care where you want to live. I don't care where you want to send your kids to school. I don't care where you want to send them to university. I don't care where you want to go on holiday. I don't care which charities you want to give your money to. All I do care about is that you've got the freedom to be able to do it. From our perspective, what we've done is put today together with a combination of people, with Dr. Dolf de Roos, recognized as one of the best international investors and has a numerous amount of books. And he's going to set the stage on where we are, most importantly from a mindset perspective in terms of real estate and what we're looking at. Then, having helped 2,100 people invest internationally on 4 different continents, I think I have enough experience to understand when I'm dealing with someone that really knows what they're doing. And so we're going to bring up RJ to explain to you how to invest in one of the best residential markets on this planet. Then we're going to bring up 3 of the most qualified people I've ever met and dealt with looking at commercial opportunities. Again, both locally and internationally. Who knows who Mark Zuckerberg is? Who's Mark Zuckerberg? Okay, so we have the Mark Zuckerberg of crowdfunding in the room. And he's going to come up, explain to you how the world is going to change, but most importantly, how your world is going to change. How you will have access to partner with the best people globally in a like-minded way where there's trust and transparency, and most importantly, your interests are aligned. Imagine doing business with your best friend, where everyone's looking after each other, and ultimately you're achieving the objective. And he's going to explain to you how that's possible. Then Dr. Dolf de Roos is going to come back, and he's going to help us analyze all these deals, the residential and the commercial. And then he's going to come back and he's going to take, right, from what we've learned, how do we implement that? What do we need to know? Because if you don't have the right knowledge, you can't make the right decisions. Then we're going to look at the system, because it's all good and well to talk. It's another thing to show. Our business model is very simple. We only do two things. People that are trying to confuse people are trying to take your money. Our business model is simple. There's only two ways to succeed in property. You need the right information and you need the right partners. That's the same if you're investing in Midrand, Atlanta, Sydney, London, or anywhere else on this planet. It's that simple. If you have the right information and the right partners, you will succeed. You mess up either of those two and you will fail. What we've tried to do is put together one of the most significant investment committees on the planet. Our results are fairly interesting. Our international real estate experience across our investment committee is 131 years. The number of international investments, 6,232. We've done an investment of over $1 billion on 5 different continents. We've authored 17 books. To be fair, Dolph's authored 16 and I've done 1. We've created the global real estate marketplace, and the best part about it is that we've got full compliance. We've taken on the 20th century compliance, we've complied, and we've offered a 21st century product. The reason that we're passionate about what we do, and why myself as a South African believes this is very, very important, and I'm not going to go into this in a huge amount of detail because a lot of you have seen us go through this, but there's 5 reasons for me as a South African that I need to keep my eye on the ball. Now, to give you a very, very simple metric that I talk about in the book, and as you know, Clem Santa has been very kind to me and is a friend of mine, and he said something very simple. If you want to understand how much money you should invest in or out of South Africa, it's a simple equation. How confident are you about the future of South Africa? Me, myself, when I wrote the book, 70% confident. Therefore, 70% of my assets should be in South Africa and 30% should be invested overseas. Simple equation. You can't get it right or wrong. It's how you feel. The 5 things that affect me, and one of the reasons that I'd probably drop that a little bit lower than 70 now. The first one is the rule of law. We in South Africa always have our gloves up, trying to work out who is trying to screw us. And I'm sorry to be crude, but it's the truth. It's amazing watching people come on buyers trips, trying to figure out what the scam is. I had one gentleman say to me after about 8 days, he goes, I really can't understand it. I can't work out where the scam is. I said, dude, for 8 days, we just spent every single minute with you from when you woke up to when you went to bed. We've introduced you to every single partner we've got. There's been complete trust and transparency. I said, if there was a scam here, I'm not clever enough to be able to put that together. But as South Africans, because we can't rely on the law to get things fixed, we're always trying to work out what's gone wrong. In America, if we had Shermax, they'd be in jail. Jail. Not sorry, not naughty, not a rap over the wrists. Jail. So therefore, people don't do things like that. Equally so when it comes to property. Rather than my tenant being arrested for not paying their rent, I got arrested. Why? Can anyone explain to me why I, as the property owner, should have no rights? Shame, poor little tenant. I must just pay the mortgage. That exact example, for the record, I had a mortgage with FNB. The employee worked for FNB Home Loans. But it was my fault she couldn't pay for 4 months. So I put an extra couple of security gates on because she obviously had a security problem because she was getting robbed regularly or something. I had to, a policeman arrived to explain to me what my problems were. RJ is going to share with you how it works in the real world. The second thing, political and economic instability. I'm not going to go into this in a huge amount of detail, but I think it goes without saying that we live on a bit of a seesaw. And, I think the elections last week were very, very interesting. One that's a big concern for me is wealth preservation. Now, my good friend Julius has also written a book. Another book I'd highly recommend reading. Because love him or hate him, what did Nelson Mandela say? I'm sorry, I don't mean love or hate Nelson Mandela. Let me rephrase that. What did Nelson Mandela say? Know your enemy. That's exactly what he said. Now, is Julius my enemy? I don't know. But if I don't read the book, I don't know. I can tell you one thing. When they say that the coming revolution and how we are going to take the land, the houses, the banks, the farms, and the rights to the water, I don't know, like, I've kind of looked at a bit of history, and that's an awesome economic model. It's worked all over the world. So, for me, there's a whole lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. You'd be amazed how many farmers we deal with, because they really know what's happening in the trenches. And, you know, I'm not a doom messiah, but I'm just, for me, a practical person. Scenario planning. I need to make sure, like Clem Sander teaches us, I got my scenarios. This one scares me. In 2010, research came out. More than 80% of South Africans that invest overseas lose money. Now, that's not just in property, that's also in stocks and bonds and everything else. To be fair, my dad would have been one of those people, because that clever financial advisor gave him some very complicated formula where he had to have some overseas and whatever. But there's two reasons why 80% of people lose money overseas. Firstly, because they panic and they're not strategic. The rand suddenly slides and they think, oh my word, I need to do something. And they panic. Now, anyone that knows anything about investment, if you panic, you fail. Am I right or wrong? And the second thing is because we're arrogant. And I'm sorry to say it, but it's the truth. Just because we are big fish in the Joburg market, we believe that we can get on a plane, we can fly to Atlanta, we can fly to London, we can fly to Sydney. We're there on holiday for a week, and within 1 or 2 days, we're going to go and see a realtor, run around, find a property. It's going to be a great opportunity. They're going to promise a rehab job plus a management solution. We're going to get back on a plane, and it's all going to work. Now, the only question I would ask you is that RJ has just arrived. You're going to meet him later, and he's terrified of our AIDS-carrying mosquitoes and tigers. And AIDS-carrying tigers. And what would you do, you know, if he came to you and said, I want to find a good deal in 2 days? What are the chances of him finding a good deal in Joburg knowing no one? 0. So why do we arrogantly think we can do it elsewhere? They see us coming with a big red dot on our forehead. And the last one that for me is really important is the currency devaluation. You know, Henny stood on stage in Bloemfontein in February this year, and you're going to meet Henny later. And he said, you know that I've worked for 30 years of my life. And other than the money and the assets I have overseas, this last year, I lost 25% of my net worth in South Africa by doing nothing. I worked my butt off, but something out of my control went down. And later, I'm going to bring up a guy that we work with hugely, James Painter, because he works all on the fundamentals. The rand, if you look at it from 1990 against the US dollar, has lost 5.6% every single year since 1990. If you look at it over the last 30 years, it's 6%. You can love me, you can hate me. You can love James, you can hate James, but those are the facts. He's going to show us later, when we do the Q&A session, about the fundamentals. He's going to teach you that sentiment is rubbish. The mining strikes and stuff are rubbish. There are 2 fundamentals that drive what is happening to the rand. The first one is productivity. You can see ourselves in blue. You can see our trading partners in maroon. And you can see that we're going down and they're going up. If our productivity is dropping and theirs is rising, it's common sense. He'll explain to you also why these numbers. I got one question. Do you think this trend is going to continue or change? What about this one? Our labor cost continues to rise, whereas our trading partners is falling. Is it going to continue or change? It's going to continue. Well, I can't see any foreseeable way how it's going to change. Therefore, these trends will continue to change. Continue to stay on path. James has a very statistical way of looking at it, but I will tell you one thing. We did this event last year. We had 202 people in the room. He said that within 3 months, the rand will go over 10 rand to the dollar. That date was 888. I said, what accuracy do you believe that it'll go over 10? He said 90%. 22 people took action that day. 180 didn't. And within less than 6 weeks, the rand went over 10 rand to the dollar. And has it ever recovered? Yes or no? So why not learn from someone who actually knows what they're doing and has an accuracy of more than 80% since 2005? But the interesting thing for him is that if you look at the probability curve of where we're going over the next couple of years, we're going between 14 and 21 to the US dollar. Now, interestingly enough, there's a 70% probability of it happening quicker and a 30% probability of happening a little bit slower, but there's a 100% probability of it happening. So in 2013, last year, we lost 24.08%. Now it's recovered a little bit, I get that, but that's the facts. In our book, we talk a lot about what it means to you, and most of you know what Consumer Price Index is. We created the Global Wealth Index. I, as a South African, wanted to know what it impacts and what it means to me. And if you want to, there's a whole part of this in the book. But the long story short is we did the research for the last 30 years, and our wealth is devaluing by 29.5% year on year, compounded for the last 30 years. You can love me, you can hate me, but those are the facts. Today, we're going to share with you how you can change that trend. If you stay here right to the end, I will give you a very simple way to resolve that problem. Because it's such a big concern for everyone, Clem and I wrote a book, and today we're going to be referring a lot to it. It's been endorsed by 40 of the global leaders and property experts. Read it. It'll teach you how and why and what we do. We've got an entire system. We don't just bet or gamble or use gut feel. We use statistical four-dimensional model to make the right decisions. But the most important thing we do is partner with the best on the planet. The best advice I could ever give you is that if you're looking to get a job increase or looking to improve your lot in life, find out who the person is in the middle and avoid them. Go straight to the top.